It's Janae here to brighten, enlighten, and ignite your day. I am reporting live from my kitchen as I am here in the month of February talking about the love affair, opening the door to the divine. And what was so amazing about this month is, last month when I was hit over the head and really open up to God's calling for my life and something was going on, I really started to hunker down in my God cave, and I loved that. And I allowed myself to do that because I gave myself a permission slip. Yes, I did. I gave myself permission to let go of doing the things that I thought I had to do and really give myself a chance to pause. Now, partly this was inspired from the book called The Power of Pause. I was reading this book with my Wings group, and what was so critical about this book is it says that, we need to take time to let our bodies rest so that our souls can catch up. Actually, when we learn how to do less, we actually become more. And as I was practicing this principle this month, it was amazing. I just allowed myself to really be more and be in God's presence and let, Him kind of lead the way. And I'll never forget one day where the big reveal came. I was busy after being inspired. I love to write. So I was just writing about different insights that were coming. And then I wrote the words, a love affair with God. And I remember just being shocked and wondering, what did this all mean? I got the chills and literally my pen dropped. And I thought, okay, something big is going on and I'm just ready to experience whatever that is. So I'm going to share with you in our video lesson really 5 recipes for success, for loving God, loving yourself, loving your partner, loving others, and loving your work. The first recipe for success is loving God. Now this is my recipe for success, and I would encourage you to think about what is yours. Now, what this makes is alignment, and that's really the first ingredient. 1 cup of eternal, internal, and external perspective. I share more about this in my reflections, but one of the things that was critical, a quote that I wrote that really summarizes it. We should have God's eternal perspective within our internal being so that we can be of more external use to others. So how do we see beyond who we are and yet live that in our being so that we can serve and help others in greater ways? Now my second ingredient then is really 1 pound of our natural alignment style. What I mean by that is I was in this mode of alignment and I had received an email from a woman who had this cash alignment program, and I thought, well, that's great. I could use something like that for my business. So I opened it up and I found out more, and what was fascinating is that she talked about for our external marketing to be effortless to us, it has to match our internal state of being. And so when I did the exercise, I found out that my internal state of being is being a truth, a wisdom guide. And therefore, the way that I influence and persuade best is through my content and my conversational style. So exactly what I'm doing here in my Love Affair with God program. And so what is important for us is to understand that we have our own way of aligning, just like the wheels in a car need to be aligned to make sure we're not off center, shaky. We're not being somebody who we're not meant to be, because when we're loving God, we're more in alignment with who He is and who we are, so that we can be more of use to whoever it is we are connecting with. All right, the third ingredient that we have here is being able to have 2 tablespoons of Deuteronomy 6 verses 5 through 6. So let me just take a moment to read that, because it's truly one of my favorite verses, which gets all about this whole idea of loving God. So, therefore, you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength. Take to heart these words which I enjoin on you today. So this is really important, to take heart of loving God with all of who we are. And I feel like the rest of Deuteronomy through chapter 9 actually gets at some of the other recipes of success for loving others in your work, etc. So I'm just going to go ahead and read that too. It says, drill them into your children. Speak of them at home and abroad, whether you are busy or at rest. Bind them on your wrist as a sign, and let them be as a pennant to your forehead. Write them on the doorsteps of your houses and on your gates. So it's critical that loving God means that we are sharing that and being in alignment with ever. Because then what can happen is the last ingredient that I have on my recipe for success is 1 dash of divine wisdom. So this is fun. I had received a card from a good friend of mine. It was a gratitude card. Gratitude, cultivating gratitude. It is the way. And what was so fascinating about this, not only was it a really beautiful card, but it was similar in a sense to my gratitude card that I had created, because it had the word it highlighted also in the center, just like this card. And so I had contacted the author of the card just to say, how cool is this? Your card and my card, we have the it thing going on. And her and I became connected, Sandra Allison, and she's just this beautiful woman who has this love of God. And as we started to have that soul connection and share more about our stories and who we are, she was inspired about how I was loving God, having this love affair, having this time I was spending in adoration. Then that she was inspired to create a card called Adoration. Your open invitation to revel in divine light. And it's just a beautiful way of being able to say, are you ready to step into divine's loving light? So she shares more, and I share with you in the book about more what the card says. There's just some kind of inspiration of it on the back. There's one quote I wanted to share with you. May the divine light of God shine through us all, that we may love and adore with our whole being. And that truly summarizes the dash of the secret recipe for loving God, which makes alignment. The recipe for loving yourself is my second recipe, and this makes unconditional love. If you remember, I had the center of my vision board being the goddess of unconditional love. So in order to do that, I really needed to learn how to love myself even more. So during this month, I came across this idea that there is a International Day of Self-Love on February 13th. And this woman who wrote this book called Madly in Love with Me, and she wanted to come up with the concept that in order for the next day to celebrate Valentine's Day, we need to first know and to be happy and to love ourselves. So one of the things she suggests is to have a day for a self-love date. So this is the first ingredient, is to pick a day where you go on a date with yourself. We all know it's important to have dates with our loved ones, but how about our loved ones, ourselves too? And so I picked a day for a self-date, and it was awesome. So my first ingredient there is to have 1 can of be. That meant that on my self-love date, I wasn't going to do anything. I was just going to be. Be in the moment, be who I am, and be open to whatever would come. And so I just let myself have an inspired day and let it flow from there. And it was just wonderful. The third ingredient then is to have 1 teaspoon of working hearter. Notice I didn't say harder, I said hearter. And what I mean by that is, you know, what was important in my heart? And that's what, makes the love date so great. So here's a little bit of what I had on my self-love date, because this is good for my heart. Of course, is some chocolate. I just love chocolate, and so, of course, I had some chocolate. And then some bubble bath. I definitely took a bath that day, and I had a very unique experience with that. And then I love to read. So anytime I can snuggle up with a good book, I am in heaven. So that was one of my recipes and ingredients for the working hearter piece. And then the last is 1 cup each of this clearing method. So what I mean by that, one of the good books that I was reading at the time talked about the importance of a clearing method. We fill ourselves up with so much gunk from the negative thoughts, feelings, experiences that we have in our lives that we need to clear that out. Remember how important it is to clear it out so we can be a conduit of God's love? So there's a clearing method that I was learning about that talked about 4 important phrases that you can say over and over again in your life. And I write more about this, but I just wanted to share with you those so you can start thinking about them and using them at any time. And here are the 4 phrases. I am sorry. Please forgive me. I thank you. I love you. I am sorry. Please forgive me. I thank you. I love you. The more and more we can say these phrases to clear out negative situations, negative feelings that we have, the more we're able to love ourselves, love God, and love others. So that is my recipe of success for a loving self, to have more unconditional love. The third recipe for success is loving your partner. And this is from me, and being able to have that everlasting love. And this includes 1 day of Valentine's Day. So of course we think of Valentine's Day as that one special day to celebrate those loved ones, particularly that very special somebody in your life. And for me, it's all about marriage and being married to John. And I'm just so excited that we've used this time at Valentine's Day not only to celebrate our love together, but as we host our Valentine's Day party and we invite other married couples there to honor their love, it's just been a great, wonderful tradition. So I'd like you to think about what might be your special day, or at least on a Valentine's Day, again the day before Self-Love Day. Valentine's Day could be love of your spouse, and how you might be able to do that. Just do something extra special and intentional. So it starts then with 1 cup of a love story. Now, each of us have our own love story, and it's beautiful, and the more that we can honor and remember it is great. So what is your love story? And this really came to life to me when I heard about the book called Project Everlasting, how 2 bachelors discovered the secrets of America's greatest marriages. So what they did was they traveled across the country looking for great marriages, those marriage masters who have been married for decades, and what were the insights that they gained from that. And it was great because I was really inspired by this, and it gave me a chance to write about my Project Everlasting love story. And as I was asked to present around Valentine's Day around love and loving our husband, it gave me a chance to write our love story. And then soon after that, they announced their very first ever national love story competition. So I thought, why not? I'm going to enter ours in. So we were selected as the top 3, which was exciting. And then from there to determine the winner for actually a trip to go out to the state of Washington was going to be by vote. So John and I garnered anybody that we could to vote for our love story, and we actually won. So I have a link below that just shares with you our love story. And the reason why I want to share it is because there's some great inspirational quotes, and also for you then to think of what is your love story so that you too can be inspired to share that. The third ingredient is 3/4 cup oneness. Now this is really the whole point of marriage, is that oneness, that bond, because our mission is to get each other to heaven. And the more that we can have that oneness, the greater. And when we have oneness of God and we're one with each other, the closer we go to God, the closer we grow to God, the closer we also grow together. And so this oneness is critical. And during this time, I heard about a couple from our church who was married 7 decades. Yes, 7 decades. And their story was so inspiring. They had just recently died in a fire, which was horrible. And yet reading about their story was so inspiring. And then I found out that they were the grandparents of a really good friend of mine, which was incredible. But they lived as so intertwined that they actually even died together. And so how do we create that oneness is one of the secret recipes. And then the last secret recipe is a dash of agape love. Now in the Bible, they mention different kinds of love, like filial love, which is more of a brotherly love, or eros love, which is more of that romantic love. But there is a special love called agape love, which is that self-sacrificing, the ultimate, the supreme love that really Jesus represents. And that type of love is mentioned over 300 times in the New Testament, and yet not mentioned rarely in the Old Testament. So this agape love is just this beautiful love. And when we can learn to love more in the sense of agape love, the more wonderful we're able to love our spouses and just to have that everlasting love story together. So that is my secret recipe for loving your partner. The fourth recipe for successful loving is loving others, and this makes mutual love. First ingredient is 1 pound of God-focused. So what I mean by that is the more and more that we learn how to love God, be present to God, the more we are filled with this love, then we can focus on other people. But oftentimes our cups might be empty if we don't have enough to give to others. And so again, God focus gives us that chance to love and be with others. And then we have 1 can of the present moment. You know, we have moments every day that we're given that are gifts from God. We have a moment to connect with other people and to make one of those memorable moments that could last a lifetime. Oftentimes I like to call those my grateful heart moments, where I just had a special moment with somebody. So for example, here's a picture of my family, and there are just particular special moments that I have with all of my boys that are just those heart moments, and they've only happened if you're in the present moment and you're fully present to them. Then the last ingredients for successfully loving others is 1 cup to love the one you're with. So it makes me think of the song, old song by Crosby, Stills and Nash. If you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. Well, I don't really mean what they're talking about, but what I do mean is truly loving the one you're with, right here, right now. Deepak Chopra said it this way: the most important person to be with is the one you're with right now. So loving others is all about letting God lead the way, showing you how to be fully focused on Him and present, so then that can be that conduit of love that you can love others. My last and final recipe for success is loving your work. And this makes a mission of love. So the first ingredient is a tablespoon of work is love, play, and a way of being. So what I mean by that is when you love your work, it feels like play. Like right now, I just love what I'm doing. And it just feels like play to me, that this is what I would choose to do in my free time. And yet also, loving our work is a way of being. It's not just a job we go to, a career we have, or a dream we hope to accomplish. That truly our work is a way of being. It's who we are being, is truly our work, and is the work that God put us on earth to be and to do. So if you're going through a difficult job, experience you might have right now, it's not about necessarily the job, but the work that God wants to do with you at that job. Or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, and while your true work is raising your children, it's also what you're learning along the way. And so our work can be love made visible. Our work can be play, but it's also a way of being. And what I was learning is that my work was really to learn how to love. And I spent that year and continue. It's a lifelong job description of learning how to love. And one of the most famous verses in the Bible is, of course, the 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse, which you'll hear at a lot of weddings. And it just talks about the importance if we do not have love, if that is not our true work, what can happen? It says, if I have all the faith as to move mountains, but I do not have love, I am nothing. So love has to be our work. However, love is work. It's a lot of work. Listen to this. Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not jealous. It is not pompous. It is not inflated. It is not rude. It does not seek self-interest. It is not quick-tempered. It does not brood over injury. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, and believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Whew, that is a lot of work. So how do we then know if love is our work and we want to love our work? What we need to do then is to have our next and final ingredient is 1 quart of A to Z of your soul at work. So what I mean by this is that I, at the time, was writing a spirituality in the workplace blog. So for years, it has been my passion. Spirituality in the workplace has been my passion. And so I just wanted to try to help people when you're at work, how do you bring more of yourself? How do you bring your soul, your spirit, your spirituality to the workplace? And yet what I've found over the years, it's not really about that as much as you're bringing your soul to work. Your soul is your work, just like love, right? And what you bring, what you love with, is your whole soul. And so I was writing this series of A to Z of words to really bring out our soul, like A for aliveness, B for bliss, so on and so forth, to end with Z for zany. And what I did was I created this beautiful poem that just brought it all together, the A to Z of your soul at work. So I encourage you to take a look at that in the resource section below, what I've done around that piece, because truly that is our work. Our work is love made visible. It is fun, it is play, but we need to learn that it's all about having our soul be at work, and that our true work is to love. I hope that you've enjoyed the 5 recipes of success that I've shared with you, and that you too will want to repeat or make this recipe. Again, it's all about just opening that door to the divine so that you can learn to love God, to start to have that love affair with God in your own life. So don't forget to give yourself a permission slip to embrace the power of pause by becoming more by doing less. And as you do that, you will be able to embrace all that God has in store for you and receive His divine inspiration and wisdom. So from my heart to yours, be love.